Hey guys. Okay. All right, cool. Think you guys can hear me. So for folks who were with us last time, I know we had internet. Cool. So I can see there are a bunch of folks in the chat. Thank you all for joining us. Hopefully you guys will be able to derive some value. If you guys feel anything, buffering or any kind of delays, just either leave a comment here or for those who are part of our Discord community, also you guys ping me directly there. So awesome. So for folks that are new with us today, that might be interacting with me for the first time. So a quick sort of introduction. So my name's Mayank Grover. I am the founder of Outscal. We are predominantly an education-focused company, and one of our goals is to bring up the quality level of engineers in India, and especially sort of engineers that are entering into the workforce. And my internal motivation was I graduated from Delhi College of Engineering 10 years back. At that time, the college was ranked 7 in the country. And now, I then moved to DE Shaw, another big company in India and US. Worked with them for 3 years, then moved to US, did my master's from Carnegie Mellon, and that's when I switched my domain from a general software developer to more sort of game specific game developer and the gaming industry. So I changed my forte to that. From there, moved to San Francisco, uh, worked with a bunch of game companies, DNA. So worked with some high profile games. One of them was a Transformers game, an official Transformers game. So that was pretty fun. So since then, moved back to India. Last 5 6 years, been working both in India and internationally with a bunch of companies as well. So one thing that we constantly, or at least personally, I was always facing that every time for every company that we were trying to build a solid engineering team, we had struggle finding good quality engineers. And frankly, there are so many, engineers in the country. It's just, not a fault of the engineers themselves, but the system that we are not really preparing, a system where engineers can be trained in the right way and the right fashion. And after seeing the level of engineers in US and then the engineers in India, right, there is at least 3 4 years of difference in terms of experience level, right? So an engineer that's just graduating from a bachelor's degree in India and then an engineer that's graduating with a bachelor's 4 year degree in engineering in US, there is at least 3 4 years difference. So, and actually, what one thing that I realize is that the difference is actually something that can be very easily cut shorted, right? Like if the engineers in our country were given the right kind of exposure to what's out there, what all they can do to enhance their skill set, right? So today the whole point of the session was to give you guys some tips around strategies around how to go about sort of building the career that is more focused towards the way you want it, right? And India is not the limit anymore, right? People are working globally to give you guys sort of a little bit of global exposure on how to think about not just building a solid engineering career in India, but even working globally. So that's one of the core goals. Let me look at the chat if there are some questions. Okay, all right. If you want to do a job, then is it worth to do engineering? Okay, so good question. So, so it's saying I have excellent connection. All right, so seems like some people are facing some internet connection issues, but I think others are not. And for me also, the connection is working fine. So I think it might be some individual issues. But anyways, okay. So one of the questions was that is it worth doing engineering if you just want to do a job, right? I think engineering as of now, so the short answer is actually no. It's definitely in today's age not worth engineering, especially like a degree. And I'm a very strong believer of that. Today, you can very well become a good engineer, not just India level engineer, international level engineer, right? And you can work with some of the best companies globally while sitting in India, in any city, in any state, doesn't matter, without an engineering degree. Because the whole goal today is that companies are only looking at skills. They do not care about your degree, they do not care about certifications, they do not care about anything else. Only thing that they focus on is, do you have the right skills to fill the role that they are looking for? Okay, and as long as you have that skill set, then you're good, right? There are a few more things such as communication and things like that, which are soft skills, right? And especially when you're working, uh, not in the same office, then those skills also become very important. But first thing that they'll check for is, do you have the right technical skills? If you don't have the technical skills, then obviously any of the communication skills won't matter, right? So you can be a kick-ass, communicator and have absolutely fucking awesome English, but it's not going to add any value, especially if you're talking about engineering roles, right? So that's definitely one thing. And in fact, the whole sort of premise on which Outscale is based, right, is that you do not need a proper engineering degree. Okay, so actually let me just quickly do a screen share. So here, like, that's our website basically. And typically what we do is we work with engineers as well as non-engineers who have already graduated or about to graduate, and we train them in certain technologies, right? So the technologies that we cater to are game development and web development. And we don't care whether you have a BTech degree, whether you have a BSc degree, whether you are a PhD, etc., right? As long as you have the willingness to learn and commit and stay dedicated to what you want to learn and what you want to achieve, that's all we care about, right? So that kind of doubles down on the point that I was trying to explain, that today, if you're entering into engineering, right, uh, unless you're really going at the top level engineering institutes where the brand name of the institute is going to add a little bit of a value to your resume. If you're going to do it from any random institute where the brand value is not there, right, uh, then I would highly encourage you to just take a second hard look at it. There are going to be challenges, obviously. All parents want their kids to be engineers or doctors. That's a big sort of a social thing in our country. But the point is that you can, if from a purely career perspective, you can very well succeed. Okay. So typically, I think there were a few things that I wanted to cover, and after that, I'll dive straight into questions. So just feel free to leave your questions in the chat. I'll keep looking at the chat from time to time as well. The few things that I wanted to cover were specific steps that you can build up, or you can do in order to build up your career in a way where you are able to work internationally. Okay, so what I mean by that is, first let me just explain what I mean by when you say working internationally or working sort of globally, right? So imagine if you're sitting in, say, you belong to some small tier town, not even like Delhi NCR or any Mumbai or anything, maybe like Allahabad or Indore or something, right? Where there is a lot of technology hubs that are coming up, and you want to become a kick-ass developer, right? Just that you're just getting started and have no idea how to go about it, right? So here are the key sort of steps that you can follow, and you might be somewhere in the middle. So just apply it to yourself based on which part of the journey you are in, and take the steps after it. So step one would be to start diving into your sort of first programming language, right? And it doesn't matter which programming language you pick up. Typically, I highly encourage students to start with C++ because it's one of the core fundamental programming language and slightly more harder ones, right? So normally I usually recommend students to stay away from things like Python and JavaScript as the first programming language. And the reason for that is because the moment you pick up things like C++, you go super deep into understanding very core constructs of things like object-oriented programming, how to write clean code, etc. Right? A lot of these complexities are simplified in other programming languages. As a result, when you're working in a different or a higher level programming languages, even C# and Java and Golang and such, right? A lot of things are already taken care of by the system. As a result, you do not get to learn these things. So C++ is a much harder programming language to learn when you're starting off, but I highly encourage you to do that, because once you have learned that language, moving to any other language will become much easier, whereas reverse is not true, right? So that's why the very first programming language I highly always encourage C++, okay? Once you have done C++, right, or at least started to understand C++ and the basics of object-oriented programming, focus on building a few simple projects, right? And even in all the programs that we do at Outscal, right, all the free programs, paid programs, whatever it might be, right, a lot of the focus is towards building projects. And you'll see this as a sort of a consistent theme in everything that I say, right? The two main goals of why you should be always focused on building projects with whatever you're learning, right? So if you're learning C++, figure out what kind of projects you want to build, right? Typically, I encourage students to build some kind of mini game or even a text-based kind of a game as well, because this gives you a very hands-on exposure of applying the things that you have learned. Otherwise, you just learn the theory, but you never learn the practical aspects, right? So build a project, right? The second thing you want to do is put up that project somewhere publicly, right? And the most common place that you can do it is on GitHub, okay? So go to GitHub, create a free account, and put up whatever projects from day one that you're working on publicly on GitHub. It does not matter whether it's a shitty project, whether it's an incomplete project, it has a bunch of bugs, etc. Remember, if an employer is looking at your profile, right, they rather see a shitty, incomplete, buggy project than no project. Because even that shows that you were sort of passionate enough to try things. Even though you failed, but you were still trying. You tried and you tried, right? So demonstrating that becomes very important, okay? So everything that you do should revolve around this concept of doing projects. You have to do projects. Building to-do apps, building weather apps, building these tutorial apps, those do not count as projects, because every online YouTube tutorial that you follow, it will help you in building these things. And anybody who's serious about it can literally finish it in 6 hours. It doesn't take more than that. So make sure you can start with doing these kind of apps, right? A to-do app or a weather app or some basic, task management app. Every YouTube tutorial follows these kind of apps, right? While these are good to get started, but these are not good to showcase to a potential employer that wants to hire you, and especially not an international level, right? Maybe you can go by with a Indian company by showing these simple apps, and they might be able to give you the first internship that you might be looking for, right? But if you really want to up your game, right, and start freaking earning in dollars while you're still in college, you need to take it to the next level, which is actually start building on more complex projects where you can apply these skills that you've learned and then show that yes, I'm capable of building these kind of things. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to start working with your first programming language, which is C++. Okay, and have a few sort of game projects. Usually that's what we recommend. Okay, if you're out of ideas on game projects, we have a very kick-ass developer community on Discord. Maybe somebody from my team can actually share the direct link of Discord itself, and you guys can join the Discord community, interact with other fellows there, and see if you can find other developers to even work with you on building some of these projects. Group projects are also a very great aspect to show on your portfolio. Okay. Once you've done C++ and understood basics of object-oriented programming, now is the time to pick up a technology stack. Too many students get stuck in thinking, should I learn JavaScript first? Should I learn Java first? Should I learn servlets? Should I learn AI? Blah, blah. All of these new age technologies, blockchain and whatnot, right? But so many students do not even have a basic understanding of object-oriented programming, right? Like might be a kick-ass blockchain guy, You might be a kick-ass Java developer, or you just don't know anything about basics of object-oriented programming and not able to explain me within 20 seconds. I don't care what all things you might have done in Java, right? So first, master the fundamentals, then move on to a technology, okay? Now here is where you want to start building these sort of bigger projects, okay? So let's say you figure out that I'm interested in web development, right? Whatever it is that you're interested in, the process applies to pretty much everyone, right? You might be interested in web, you might be interested in gaming, you might be interested in AR, VR, you might be interested in blockchain, doesn't matter. Whatever you're interested in, start learning that, build a basic app, project, whatever it is, right? Something small to get your hands dirty, Android app, iOS app, whatever, okay? Then put it up again on GitHub, okay? And then start building on something bigger, right? When you build this something bigger, right, it doesn't need to be something fancy that you came up with. Take examples that are already out there. So if you are, say, aiming to become a web app developer, right, like a full stack web, take any of the full stack web applications, every freaking website that you visit where you can log in, you can create an account, you can do certain things, you can track your journey from Uber to, well, Uber doesn't have a web app, but a mobile app, but Amazon, Flipkart, Zomato, any of the things that you can think of, right? Just use them as an example, look at their design, look at those things and try to replicate them. Because remember, the goal here is to not really build a full-fledged working product that you can sell in the industry, right? It's to actually master your technical skill set. So you don't want to think about issues with designing an app, right? There are good companies that are already building a lot of design. You can add some of your own flavor, maybe change few things here and there, but try to stick with existing what's there and replicate it and learn things by doing that, okay? And once you've done this, add a very sexy GitHub README file. Okay, if you do not know what that is, it's a summary page or a summary text file that goes at the top of your GitHub profile or a GitHub repository that summarizes your entire project. Because any engineering manager looking at your profile will never look at your projects in deep. They'll only look at summary within 20 seconds. Either they get it or they don't. If they don't get it, they'll move on to the next candidate. So precisely explain what is it that you're trying to do in this project, how have you implemented things, and what was the eventual goal, and did you succeed? If it was a team project, how many members were working on it, etc., etc., right? So it's kind of like giving a trailer of the project, and through the project, giving them a trailer of who you are, okay? So typically, this is how you want to ramp up slowly in your career, okay? So you'll start with something of basics, right? Pick up a language and start building certain projects in it, okay? After that, I would recommend that you jump into data structures and algorithms and now start diving deep into DS and algo, okay? And implement all the possible different data structures, right? All the way from arrays to strings to trees, graph, go as far as you want, okay? The reason typically, a lot of, and this might sound a little bit controversial to a lot of students, right? Because every time they hear their seniors or alumni, they usually get this advice that, okay, just start with data structures and algorithms, right? The problem is when you learn just data structures and algorithms, you're learning them theoretically. You're never learning the applied side of it. You're never learning how to apply these data structures into real life scenarios, okay? Once you have built a real life project, right, you might have to implement certain data structures there, and as a result, you might have to pick up one or two data structures, right, before you even go deep into the whole DS topic itself, right? But what happens is that if you've learned to do certain projects before, okay, exposed yourself to building actual products, right? When you learn data structures and algorithm, your mind opens up as to the possibilities of where all these data structures you can start applying to in different projects, in different things, in different applications. And that's when you actually start to learn a lot more, okay? Rather than just theoretically going, okay, this is a linked list, this is how I create a node, this is how I make a doubly linked list or a singly linked list, things like that, right? Instead, you'll be actually able to relate it to real life projects and then start improving your previous projects that you might have worked on with these new data structures that you learn. Oh, I can go back into my Uber app, and the place where I was tracking a list of drivers or cars available in my region in an array, I can replace it with a queue, or I can replace it with a stack, or something, right? Something more advanced, right? So you'll be able to sort of, add more value on top of the projects that you have already done and apply the things that you're learning. Okay, so typically this is kind of the journey that I usually recommend, and always keep putting out these projects on GitHub and LinkedIn. These are two things that I usually always recommend that students very underrate. So you should have a GitHub account and you should have a LinkedIn account. So whatever you're making, if it has some kind of a visual aspect, take a screenshot, record a small video, put it on your LinkedIn itself, right? And keep it professional there. So you'll be surprised how many people just do that, and within 1 week or within 1 month start getting reached out by recruiters for internships and job opportunities. Okay. Now the last part. Once you have unlocked these access to these things, right? Now how do you go about reaching out to companies, and especially when you're talking about companies internationally as well, right? These aren't companies that you can just go to and directly drop in your resumes or something like that, right? So you should typically be not ever doing that, right? So let me go back here. So there are a lot of these websites. So this is just one example, which are so these are job posts websites where you can look at a lot of international remote opportunities. So you can be sitting at your home, irrespective of which location you're in, and you can still go ahead and start applying with some of the companies that are working internationally and are open to hiring remote developers. Okay, so certain position would be things that are highlighted to be a region specific, but you can see that there are a bunch of other opportunities which will be marked as 100% remote. Some of them would be for senior engineers, some of them would be for entry level engineers, and you can just click on each of them and figure out what things they are looking for, etc. Right? Like what specific skill set they're looking at, right? So this is more JavaScript oriented. Then there might be some that are more C++ oriented, or this one is iOS developer, right? So, and this is just example of one website. If you Google, there are a bunch of remote.io, remoteok.io is another one. There are a shit ton of these websites where you can actually go and start learning about these companies that are working with global talent. These companies only care about working with the best possible talent. They do not give a shit about which location, which country, which place you are in, right? Some of them will ask you to, work maybe during the night, etc., because to have overlap with the rest of the team. If the rest of the team is based in US or Europe or something. And the best part is you can still be in college. I know some of the really good developers, or these guys are third year students, and they're spending more time working as freelance or even full-time developers for these international companies, and they are making a lot of good money, right? And but of course, it's a hard road, right? It's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't definitely happen just by studying data structures, right? So you need to develop good product skills, okay? So pick some technology stack that you are excited about. It doesn't matter which one it is. Android, AI, iOS, gaming, web, JavaScript, could be anything. There are opportunities available for every kind of developer in the world. Some of them have more opportunities, others have less. But if you're still in college, if you're just starting your development career, at this stage, you should be focusing on exploring a lot of these different tracks to figure out which one you're excited about. So many students get hyped up by, oh, AI is doing so great. All my seniors are telling me to do AI. None of your fucking seniors know what AI is, but they're telling you to do AI, right? Maybe one of them is sort of, is getting something into AI data sciences role, but 99% of the ones that are giving you advice would probably not know about it themselves. So even if you're seeking advice, reach out to people who are working in the industry in those specific roles. So if their current role is that, then only take their advice. Otherwise, the advice is just free to give. Okay. So typically you want to focus more on just people that are actually doing things in that industry and learn from them, right? Start building a portfolio towards these kind of companies. And trust me, within no time, you'll be able to do that. One of the questions that I usually get asked is that there's a lot of focus on competitive programming, right? And then product building is a very different skill where you have to learn languages like JavaScript or Flutter or JS or something for Android. Then if you're going into Android, then you need to learn Java, right? If you're learning to build products, you need these domain expertise, at least one of them, right? Not all of them, but at least one, right? But if you're purely focusing on competitive programming, right, where the whole goal is to learn, how to solve problems, that's a very good career track. But what you need to understand is that there are trade-offs in both the approaches. Okay, so when I say trade-offs is when you're learning competitive programming on one side, right, you are sort of preparing for the Googles and the Facebooks of the world, right? So all the companies that are only hiring for Google, only hiring using competitive programming as a way to standardize developers, right? So you just need to be sure that these are the companies that you're aiming for, and then you want to just go for competitive programming. That is absolutely fine. But you want to understand that what happens if you're not able to crack, because it's always a risk reward, right? If you're not able to crack into these companies, then what, right? What is the fallback option? It's the same risk reward situation when you prepare for IITs as well, right? Not that about 2 lakh, 3 lakh, I don't know how many lakhs of students appear for IITs, but I appeared for IITs twice. I got into IITs 2 times, right? Like 10 years back, right? 11 years back, actually. Sorry, not 11, 15 years back, 2004 and 2005. I ended up not taking any of their positions because I was getting mechanical engineering, civil engineering, and my core focus was I'm going to do computer science. I'm going to only focus on computer science and IT because I knew that is what I wanted to do. Because I was actually in my school days doing and building gaming projects in C++. So the more you build these things, the more you are able to understand what is you're passionate about and what is you want to do. Okay, so that's where you want to experiment with a lot of things, and don't worry if you fail in those experiments, right? Because you'll be able to take those learnings and apply again. Okay, cool. Let me quickly look at some of the questions. So I'll just go slightly reverse in order. So some of the people are asking that how do I want to enroll, how? So typically what you can do is if you want to enroll in any of the different programs, you can directly go to our website, outscal.com, right? So just go to the website and hit the apply now button. A simple Google form will show up and you will just fill in and provide the information. Somebody from my team would, reach out to you, okay? So typically that's the process. You can just mark what is the current year, etc., etc., and accordingly, my team members will connect with you and figure out which program might be the right program, whether it's a job placement program or a job preparation program, and accordingly they'll help you, guide you. Okay. All right. Let me look at some of the question. Okay. What happens in Outscal learning? Okay, how to enroll? All right, so I think there are a bunch of questions on how to enroll. So generally, I think what you can do is we have a very active community on Discord. This is another great communication app that I think all of you guys should use, especially if you guys are playing PUBG or anything like that, right? A lot of the gamers have their own servers on Discord as well. If you're not, you guys should check it out. It's helpful for even organizing gaming events and all. But we use it for all our community as well. So if you go to our website, you can on this second last link, you'll be able to directly click this link and join our Discord community. Okay, there all the current students are enrolled. I'm usually there. Rest of the mentors who are teaching and guiding students in our different programs are also there. So you can interact with the other people who are enrolled in different programs. And like I was saying, right, the best part is that if you're building, say, a project in C++ or Android or Java or whatever, right, you can just share that information with the rest of the community, and maybe somebody else is excited and also wants to work on those kind of projects, and they can work with you as well. Okay, so that's where it can help you sort of connect with other talented developers as well, in order. And these are, majority of them are college students as well. Actually, a lot of them are working professionals, people who have just graduated or started working in the industry. Okay, let me check if there are other questions. Okay, so there is a question from Harpreet. What about ECE students, and we are not good in coding? So Harpreet, that's a very good question. So what you want to do is first understand, and this is not just for ECE student, it applies to pretty much everybody who's non-computer science, right? So the point that you want to understand is that, are you really passionate about the kind of jobs that exist in your core domain, whether you're EC, mechanical, civil? Are you excited about those opportunities? Okay. Uh, if the answer is yes, then don't even think about anything else, right? But because you're asking this question, I'm guessing the answer to that question is no, right? You're not really excited about that. I want to be the best freaking electronics engineer in the world. If you're not excited like that, then probably electronics, mechanical, or whichever is your core branch, you're not really excited and passionate about it, right? So then you want to figure out, is coding the right platform for you, right? A lot of people think that just because there are good number of job opportunities for coders, that is what they should do. But that is absolutely not true. Not everybody is meant to become a coder. Okay. And this is something that you'll have to find for yourself, but I'll tell you a few steps on how you can find that out. Okay. So doesn't matter whether you're first year, whether you're final year, or if you've already graduated, right? You guys are still fairly young, and experimenting right now will give you the right way forward in your career. Okay, so don't think about there is going to be, if I take too much time to experiment, there is going to be a gap year on my resume, etc. Right? A lot of recruiters will ask you why there is a gap year. The only way around it is to answer confidently and say, all right, I was not happy with what I was doing. It did not align with the future vision of how I wanted to build my career, and I had to stop and change my direction, which meant I have to start learning all the way again, but I will do it no matter what, right? Just this 20-second answer, and no recruiter will turn you down saying that, oh, you have a gap year, right? If that is a policy within the company that they have a gap year, then they're not going to even interview you or recruit you, then probably that company is not a good company for you itself, right? So if you're really focused on learning and building your skill set in whichever vertical you want to go, then these gap years, etc., don't matter. Okay. So going back to your question, so first pick up the first programming language, right? C++. Start building some projects here. This will literally take you 2 weeks to do. So we have our C++ program, which is 1 month long. It's self-paced. Typically, if you join the program, which comes with live classes that either me or some of the mentors take, it usually is associated with the sort of 2 to 3 sessions per week. But you can take the self-paced one as well. There is something which has more sort of, you can continue doing at your own pace, and you can even take 6 months if you want, right? It doesn't matter. Point what I'm making is, start building some real world applications that you can get excited about. So for the C++, you build a few games like tic-tac-toe or hangman kind of games, right? If you are enjoying this process, if you have fun while building this, right, it will be hard. I'm not saying it will be easy. It will be fucking hard, right? But if you're enjoying doing this, at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I finished 2-3 projects and I didn't even realize where the time went by, right? Then coding and going deeper into this vertical is the right thing for you, right? Because if you focus on finding which is the right vertical for you, then you'll be able to enjoy building a career in it. Too many people get sucked into doing coding because, oh, Google gets freaking 50 lakh packages and 1 crore packages. But do you know how hard the road is for getting into that 50 lakh 1 crore packages? You have to slog for 3, 3, 4 years. Sure, you might know about 1, 2 people who were, who brag about, oh, I spent 6 months and I prepared for Google and I'm solid, right? But those are usually exceptions, right? An average person would take 2 to 3 years of slogging in and out every day, doing problems, doing assignments, doing questions, problem solving, etc., helping even others, with problem solving, right? Or building projects, whatever it is, right? It is a hard road, but if you figure out that you're having fun, it becomes much easier. Okay, so start by building some projects, start by picking up your first programming language, and then you'll be able to realize whether this is something for you or not. Okay, and if there is, then you keep going down that path that I highlighted earlier. So start with C++, build some projects, then figure out which one. So you can start with, say, and you think, okay, Android might be an exciting thing. You spend 3 months doing Android, build a few projects, do a few basic courses, etc., paid, free, whichever you want to go for, but build a project, figure out whether you're liking Android or not, right? If you're liking it, do another project. If you're liking it, do another project, right? Keep building mastery over these things. But if, say, after project 2, you're like, no, I'm not enjoying it, this is too much, etc., etc., it's not fun. Go back to something else. Spend 2, 3 months doing something else. You'll have to do these experimentations to figure out what it is for you that you want to do. At the end of the day, after doing experimentation for 12 months, you figure out, okay, entire coding is not for me because I'm just not enjoying this whole experience, right? Then maybe you want to look at marketing. Maybe you want to look at sales, right? There are so many awesome engineers who are not really great engineers, right? But they turned out to be great salespeople. They turned out to be great marketers, right? Digital marketing, physical marketing, events, public speakers, whatever, right? There are so many other paths where you can make a good amount of money and a kick-ass career. And companies need all kind of people, right? So coding is just one thing that engineers get sucked into. But being an engineer, there are so many companies that are hiring engineers as salespeople because they're selling their products to other engineers. And for the sales, you need to be a domain expert. An engineer with a sales experience is really important for companies today. So just coding is not one career. What I'm trying to say is, you should think about things more broadly. And just because you ended up into a BTech degree doesn't mean you have to come out to be an engineer only. You can graduate with a BTech degree and still figure out what you want to do. So I graduated almost 11 years back. None of my batchmates right now are in technology. Nobody is doing technology. None of my batchmates, probably 1 or 2 out of 100 people, right? But everybody is now either a sales head, heading a sales company, heading a marketing division, doing something or the other, right? But most of them are some founders, etc., right? So what I'm trying to say is that there are a lot more options out there, and you should continue on exploring whichever it is and figure out whichever you are excited about. Okay. So okay, we have, okay. So been approached by recruiters outside India, but I was not able to crack the interview. How do I work on it? So Amanchu, you're asking, I was approached by recruiters internationally, but you're not sure how to crack these interviews. I think it's a very specific question. I'm not sure what your feedback was. So you want to understand, are you making mistakes? Because obviously international interviews will be on video calls, right? So you'll be working remotely. So you need to be fluent in your communication. You need to have good body language when you're talking on video, especially on video, right? So you see me, when I'm sitting on video, you guys can make out that you're not just seeing my head, right? You can see my hand interactions, you can see my body language, you can see where I'm giving emphasis, etc., right? These are basic things that you need to practice from the get-go. And so many students, I don't know why, are shy about attending video conferences with video on, right? It doesn't matter what's behind you, etc., right? Everybody's working from home, everybody's in a lockdown. There are disturbances everywhere around. Just keep yourself on mute and make yourself visible. Put yourself out there and learn, right? So you'll be able to practice these things very easily. So either you might be making some mistakes in communication, you might be making mistakes some in technology, right? I'm assuming you already have a portfolio, as because of which you got reached out by recruiters. If you don't have a portfolio, probably that would not have happened. Um, so that part probably you are already done, but maybe it's something on the communication side, maybe it's on the technology skills side. So and I would need more information from your side to understand what exactly is that you're trying to ask. So how do we get an idea of complex projects? Okay, so that's a good question. So typically, like I mentioned before, you don't need to come up with ideas yourself. There are so many products that you use, and especially when you're talking about coding and technology, right? Technology is everywhere. If you're using, say, uh, imagine you're trying to build some IoT, right? Like you want to become an IoT developer or something. There's so many projects that are already available publicly for IoT, right? Connect a small CMOS camera to something and use image detection, etc. Something, right? On a Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi is super cheap. CMOS sensors super cheap. You can just buy them for less than $500, etc. Right? So right now you don't need to come up with projects. There are projects all around you. You just need to be conscious as to what exactly you want to build. Okay, so if you want to build something, say mobile apps, etc., is so obvious. There are just so many of them out there. You can just replicate anyone that you have personally used a lot. Okay, so one example is so for the last 10 years I've been using this finance app called Splitwise. And Splitwise I've been using since 2008, I think. And it lets you track financial transactions between you and your roommates, etc. Right? It's a very simple app, nothing more than that, right? You just add a friend and you say you went on a trip, you're splitting a cost of a dinner, etc., and it just keeps a transaction log of who owes how much money to somebody else, right? So our web development students are actually building a replica of this app, right? Creating replicas while you're learning is not a problem because you're not building them to sell. You're not, violating the IP, rights of some other company and taking intellectual property from somebody else and selling it, right? You're using it as a learning platform. So if you really want to, and this is another point I'll add, that if you know that there is a certain segment of companies that you're interested in, right? So imagine you're excited about the self-driving car space, right? So look at all the companies that are in the self-driving car space and build projects that are associated with that. Okay, so this is something I suggested to one of the game developers recently, and they were excited about gaming and AI. Okay, so I suggested them that all right, look at all these self-driving car companies who are building AI. Do you know how they're building AI or how they're testing the AI? They're using simulations on games like GTA or building their own versions of games. So they're hiring both game developers and AI developers, and they're working as a team together to build these simulations in which they're training their AI. Because you can't put a self-driving car AI directly into a car and let it run and kill people on the roads, right? It can't do that. It needs to be safety tested before in a virtual world, right? So as a result, Tesla and Waymo, a lot of these companies are hiring game developers now because they're using the same technology. Google is hiring game developers, right? Because all the AI simulations are using, game developers, the same kind of tools that game developers use to build games, right? So as a result, you're seeing this hybrid of technology. So you just need to be aware of what kind of companies that you are interested in. If you already know that, then it's always great to start building small projects in that direction. And that way, when you approach a recruiter in that space and you show them your portfolio, they're like, wow, this guy already has built, or this person has already built projects in the same space that we're working in, right? And you get extra points and you shortcut your way to an interview, right? So you want to figure out what exactly you're excited about, what that domain the company is working in, right? And then, maybe even have some projects on your portfolio. So when you apply to that company, highlight that project at the top of your resume, right? But if you apply to some other company, say an e-commerce company, and if you have done an e-commerce app, right, or something in e-commerce, put that on the resume on top, right? Don't just apply one generic resume. That's another thing that I've seen a lot of students usually make a mistake on. Okay. All right, what sources should we use to improve our programming? Okay, that's a very broad question. So the most common source is Google. So it depends on what exactly you mean from improving, whether it's, are you starting to learn a new language? Are you already an intermediate developer in that language and you're trying to debug issues, etc., right? Or are you trying to build an advanced level project, etc.? What exactly are you stage in? The resources might differ, right? So if you're just starting following kind of popular platforms, etc., or doing some paid courses, etc., whatever is the one that fits your domain, you go for that, right? What I've seen people not do is Google enough. Okay, you need to become good at Googling. So many developers or students absolutely are horrible when it comes to the skill, right? And you'll be surprised that this is such an obvious thing and still people are not good at it. Why? Because they never try, right? So when you're building an app or a tutorial or something, if you find they're getting an error or an exception, just copy paste the entire damn thing into Google. Stack Overflow is probably going to be the first thing that shows up. Read on that Stack Overflow thread, figure out what is the error that you're getting into and try to fix it from there, right? Don't just give up. Most of the time people end up giving up and trying to change random things in their code in order to fix the error, right? But don't do that. First, understand what that error is, why is it coming, and what is a potential solution for it, right? Then apply that solution and see whether that fixes or not. For that, you need to Google first, okay? So literally, Google is your best friend. 90% of a developer's job is Google. Trust me, and I'm not kidding. The moment you understand how to Google and quickly find solutions to the problems that you might be facing, that can make you 100% more productive. And on a day job, on a professional developer working at a company, be it a junior developer, senior developer, doesn't matter. Okay. How can a fresher get a job in a gaming company? It's not really about a fresher getting a job in a gaming company, but it's about fresher getting a job in any company, right? Especially when you're looking at companies that are building products, right? Companies that focus on these product segment companies, right? And they're hiring specific kind of developers, because what you need to understand is that these companies do not counting the Googles and the Facebooks that are tens of thousands of developers big, but every other company that you look at, they usually don't have time and energy to train you. If they want a React developer, there are ample developers in the market who are React, who do React, who know React very well. Okay, they'll hire them. Fresher, no fresher, nobody gives a shit anymore. Okay, so remove the word fresher from your dictionary, first of all. So many students come up saying, oh, I'm a fresher, sir, I can't do this, right? But I can see freshers that are junior to you, still in college and working with companies in Silicon Valley in US, right? They're not even graduated yet, and they are earning $10 an hour working remotely, right? They are junior to you. So get this sort of mentality. If you're a fresher, you had 4 years. A fresher had 4 years to finish their degree. If you couldn't do something in 4 years, right, then that reflects really negatively on you, especially in mind of product companies that care about, are you the right kind of person for them? Are you gonna solve problems when a new problem comes up, or some senior has to guide you every step of the way, right? If that is the case, if you need to look at guidance and coaching at every step of the way from somebody senior, no company is going to hire you, because then you're a liability for that company. They want to see smart people. They want to see people who can figure things out. And the only way you do that is by failing a lot. You fail and you learn. You fail and you learn. You fail and you learn. You keep repeating this. Okay. So, remove the dictionary as this word called fresher. It puts you as a student in a negative mindset. Okay. In order to get into any company, not just gaming company, this applies to any product companies. Okay. What you can do is start building projects. And I keep repeating the same thing. Work on building projects. Showcase your projects. So if you look at the students that are currently enrolled in our programs, one of their tasks every 1 or 2 weeks is to actually, demo the project, right? They'll internally demo it to me. They'll internally demo it to their other mentors that they're working with for the specific modules, right? So what happens is the moment you are supposed to demo your project, you have to screen share your project. You have to talk about what you have built so far, right? Whether it's an app, whether it's a game, whether it's a C++, text game, it doesn't matter, whatever it is, you have to demo it, right? And after that, you take a screen recording of it, upload it to YouTube, upload it to LinkedIn, right? Last batch, we had a game developer who did this literally for the first time. There was a bug in his game. He put this video out. It was less than 15-second video, and he got 3 requests overnight from recruiters who wanted to interview him the same week, right? And he was a current college student at that time. So my point is that start building projects, start putting this information out in the world on LinkedIn and YouTube that you're building these projects. Tell people that you're building these projects, right? Before you do that, nobody's going to know that you exist in some corner of the world. You need to put yourself out there, okay? So whether it's a gaming company, whether it's a product, doesn't matter, any kind of product companies, you want to start building projects. You want to showcase projects. You don't want to just show me a certificate. You don't want to just show me, oh, sir, I've done this training, done that training, done that training. Everybody comes with fake certificates, right? And jugaad certificates. Every student is smart enough to jugaadify a certificate. So don't do jugaad certificates. Focus your time and energy on doing projects, okay? How can COVID situation affect year's placement, and what can we do for it? Yeah, Vineet, that's actually a very good question and very relevant to even current scenario. So, 1 second. So there is no denying that COVID has actually impacted the global economy. And if you guys are tracking news, Oyo had to do massive layoffs. Uber had to do 25% of their entire company. Uber had to be laid off. So every major company is doing a lot of layoffs, right? So COVID has impacted the scenario a lot, which means this impact is going to be felt even in placement season as well, right? Students who are just graduating. So be prepared to, have a rough placement season, but do not let that discourage you. If companies are not coming on campus, if you're right now in final year or entering into final year and you're seeing companies are not visiting campus, that does not mean job opportunities have been, job opportunities are still there. There are so many game companies that right now we are talking to. Right now, gaming is at an all-time boost, right? Every gaming company's traffic is increased by 10 times, right? So there are a lot of startups in the gaming ecosystem that are getting funded even now, right? So as a result, you need to be aware of what is, riding the wave right now. So gaming and education companies and education startups are riding this wave because they are the way forward, right? They are the future, and everybody's realizing that. So a lot of these companies are hiring. So you want to look out for these companies that are hiring and start approaching them off campus. Okay, so don't just wait for companies to come on campus, but start approaching them off campus. And what you want to do is, again, have projects ready to show, because you're not the only one who's going to be approaching them, right? There are 15 lakh other engineers in the country, 10 lakh, 15 lakh, how many, right? And all are going through the same situation if you're a final year engineer, right? And they are going to be approaching the same set of companies as well. So the companies have a lot of options to choose from. So to give you an example, when we put out an internship posting on Internshala, right? In 2 to 3 days, we get about 2 to 3,000 applications, right? How do you think it's possible for us to, figure out who's good candidate or not, right? My first filter is that, do they have a GitHub profile? That's literally it, right? If you don't have a GitHub profile, I'm not even going to spend time looking at it, right? And out of the 3,000 applications, that's only 50 people, right? Then somebody from my team will look at those 50 people and figure out who actually have projects. And then that filters it down to only 10 people. Then we do an interview or a written test, etc. with those 10 people. So nobody has time to filter through 2,000, 3,000 applications. So even if you can sit on Internshala or any job post, Naukri post, etc., and apply to every damn thing that's out there, right? It's not going to help your chances because there's too much talent available in the market and you need to stand out. Okay? The only people that stand out are the ones that actually work, that actually put hard work behind what they say. Okay? So just making a kick-ass fancy resume is not going to get you through. Unfortunately, that's the hard reality of today's time. Okay? But that does not mean that the job opportunities are not there. So when I graduated in 2009, I was sitting in placements in 2008. And this was right around the time when Lehman Brothers had crashed. So this was during the last financial crisis, right? And I was in Delhi College of Engineering. Uh, Typically, top companies like Google, Facebook, etc., would used to hire 10 to 15 people. During that season, I was the only person that Disha hired. Uh, I think there were 2 people that Google hired that year. Normally, this is like 15 people down to 2 people, 10 people down to 1 person, right? So this is the kind of scenario you will see as well in your colleges, depending on the kind of companies that are coming. But do prepare yourself for a rough placement season, which is actually, in a hindsight, it's a good thing. I'll tell you why. Okay, because what you can do is now, instead of wasting a lot of time and effort on college campus placements, use this time to start building projects and a portfolio of projects in whichever technology you are interested in. What is happening is that companies that are sitting in Bangalore are now hiring talent in Delhi. Similarly, companies sitting in Seattle, in New York, in San Francisco are hiring talent in India, right? So now, if you're sitting in Bangalore or Delhi or Kanyakumari, nobody cares. If you can show me that you are the best fucking person in the whole world for the job opportunity that I have, I'm going to hire you. It doesn't matter. It's as simple as that, right? So use this time that you would have wasted on doing GDs and interview prep for, you know, these companies that usually come on campus, right? Use that time to start focusing and building a portfolio, and that will help you in the long run, right? Not just now, but you don't have to have placement on day one of your 4th year. You need to have a placement by the time you're near about graduating or already graduated. It's totally fine, okay? But make sure that you're still working towards getting a kick-ass company that you are excited about and they are excited about having you as well, okay? uh, can we assume the job market will decline? Job market has already declined. There is no assumption around it. A lot of bigger companies, so your Googles and Facebook, have all put all the new job postings on hold. Every major company has frozen new hires. Some of them are respecting the job offers that they have already given, so they are onboarding people remotely. So this whole pattern of remote work, right? This is going to be the big unlock for you guys. You guys are the first generation of engineers that are coming out that will have the opportunity of directly start working remotely. So use your time in your colleges very wisely, right? Use your time to start building this portfolio of projects that will help you land those kick-ass international internship opportunities. And we are actually now partnering with a lot of companies in US and figuring how we can actually, typically when we partner with companies in US and India, right, giving them talent from India and working with companies in US, right, usually they want to hire talent that is at least 2 years experience. Now we are seeing that shift go away as well, because they're finding so many good talent even when they're just graduating, or sometimes even when they're in college as well, right? So the companies have started removing that barrier that they only want people with 2+ years experience. But the barrier is still going to be there in terms of the technical requirement and the skill set that they want. So you still need to clear that. But whether you're a 3rd year student, whether you are 3 years into your work experience, that doesn't matter. As long as you're available for the time that they're looking for. If they want somebody for 20 hours in a week, if they want somebody for 40 hours in a week, if that matches, technical skill set matches, communication wise good, done. You're starting earning in dollars. right? And before you even graduate. So there are so many opportunities that exist. So the website that I was showing you, so let me show you again. Um, this we work remotely, right? There are so many other websites. There is remote.io, remoteok.io, similar lines, which shows you all job postings and specify which ones, right? So if you're a kick-ass Python guy, just go and apply for these Python dev jobs, right? This one was posted 2 hours ago, right? There are job postings that are coming out like crazy every day, and this is what we are looking to in the developers that we train. We are taking these developers and trying to find the right opportunities for them internationally, right? So obviously, we are a very young company, only 1.5 years old. So we are starting to work in that domain where so far all our developers have been predominantly working with some great Indian companies, but now we are starting to expand into international domains as well. So that's where I am very confident that you guys are at that perfect space where you can now start to unlock international opportunities for yourself. But for that, obviously, a lot of hard work needs to go in. So I'll be moving permanently to US in 1.5 years. How hard will it be to get a job in Silicon Valley after having 3 to 4 years in experience? So if you have 3 to 4 years experience, it doesn't matter where your experience is, if your experience is connected to what you're working for, right? So imagine your experience here is a kick-ass developer and now you're working as a senior developer. You move to US and start working in the same domain, right? Then your experience carries over, right? And you can build on top of that experience, right? But if you are doing something disconnected, you might have to start over all over again, right? So that happened for me, right? So when I was working with D Shaw, I was predominantly working in technologies like Perl and Python, right? At that time, and a little bit of C++. Um, when I moved to US, I shifted into gaming, and that completely changed the tech stack that I was working in. So even when I was working as a senior engineer in D Shaw, when I moved to US, I started working uh, as an entry level engineer because I was new to the gaming ecosystem. I was new to the technology skill set there, right? Like C Sharp and Unity 3D, right? So I had to reset my career from zero and start all the way again. But I knew that is what I wanted to do, and I was okay with it, right? Because in the long run, it would help me build that career is towards what I was wanting to do. So as long as you're clear, those things don't matter. Okay. Uh, you read it wrong. It's don't if you don't want to do a job, then it is worth going for an engineering. So if you don't want to do a job, then is it worth doing engineering? Okay, so if you don't want to do a job, see, engineering, especially when it comes to India, right, it's not just about the job itself. It's more about uh, a lot of society pressure is also there among students, right? We end up taking this career track in 10th standard itself, right? 10th standard, you get to decide whether you want to do science or medical or whatnot, and that pretty much sets you up for engineering or MBBS or BCom honors or whatever, right? It most likely puts you in that direction as to where you want to go. So most of the time, you don't have a choice when you're that young, right? Who 10th pass has, you know, enough data to make a valid decision whether they want to become an engineer or not, right? People who graduate don't even know if they want to become an engineer or not. So that is something that is not very justified, in terms of decision making. But to answer your question, is it worth to do engineering if I know I don't want to do a job, right? So in that case, what you want to do is you want to start experimenting on what you want to do. So let's say imagine that you want to start your own startup, right? Or you want to build a design agency or whatever kind of business you want to do, right? In that case, start working on it part time while you are in engineering. If you haven't started it, take the time off and start building your business before you even enter into engineering, right? So you will have to fight. Most of the times, students will have to fight against the society, against peer pressure, against parents and family to get them some time, right? You can go to your parents and say, all right, give me 1 year. I want to work on this business, or I want to set up my own startup. I want to build a design agency, whatever it is that you want to do. Give me 1 year. If I'm still not able to build something meaningful within 1 year, then I'll go and do my engineering, right? So if you haven't started engineering, that is one definite way you can do, okay? And also what you can do is, during that time, I would encourage you to start working with other people first. So if business route is what you are thinking of, then what you want to do is first steps is always to learn how to work with people, right? And through that, especially people older than you, senior to you, who have done these things. Because what will happen is, if you immediately, the most common scenario, or rather the most extreme scenario that I can give you is that you just passed 12th standard and now you're thinking about, I want to build my own startup. I want to build my own games. I want to build my own gaming studio, right? And I've seen students who have actually applied with us for the same reason, right? And my usual recommendation to them is, if you really want to do that, you can skip engineering. There is no 100% no need for doing engineering, right? If you're really clear about what you want to do, instead of spending 4 years wasting time in engineering, you can spend 2 years interning with a bunch of different companies in the gaming space. Focus first 6 months on doing online courses, paid, unpaid, whatever, right? Doing online courses, building a basic skill set, so even a game company, even you are valuable to a game company when you intern, right? Don't just show up on an intern company's door, on a game company's door, and say, I don't know anything, will you take me as an intern, right? Then you're not actually asking for an internship, right? You're just asking for charity, right? So instead of asking for charity, build a little bit of skill set on your own, prove that you're worthy of even giving an internship, okay? And then start learning with these companies. Understand what happens on the business side, understand what happens on the technology side, understand what all kind of skill sets or people with different skill sets you need, right? Every business will have its own nuances, right? So if it's a game company that you're trying to build, you might need artists, you might need developers, you might need sound designers, you might need people who can produce the game, right? Who might know about publishing the game on Play Store and App Store, etc., right? So those kind of things. So you need to start learning these nuances, and as a result, you want to figure out what are the details in order for to be successful in this kind of a domain, right? Or whatever domain you are interested in, right? So that's why I would encourage you to spend at least a few years working, right? When I say working, I don't mean take a job. Do part-time internships, do full-time internships, just do whatever it takes to get your way into the industry, into the domain that you're interested in, right? Show them that yes, you're gonna spend 18 hours a day if you have to get the task done, whatever they're gonna assign to you, right? If you're willing to do that, a lot of companies will be able to take you, right? Do an internship for free. If you think the company has good senior engineers, good senior producers that you can learn from, right? So do it for free, right? Learn those skills, build professional connections with industry people, and then decide whether you want to build your own thing or not. Because usually what happens, you can build it. I'm not discouraging you to not building from the get-go. You can build it. Problem is, you'll make a lot more mistakes and it will take you a lot more time, and the journey will be a lot more harder. Because a lot of other people would have already gone through that journey. You want to capitalize your time by learning from them in half the time, right? And then apply those things to your own business, okay? So you want to first work with others, absorb those skill sets, absorb the knowledge, and apply it to your thing, whatever it is your thing, okay? Is data science good for a second year student? See, everything is good for a second year student. Like I said, you want to experiment, okay? Data science is perfect for everybody. Nobody knows shit about what it means, right? Final year students applying for a data science job don't have any fucking clue about what is data science, what actually people do in data science. So instead of saying, is this good for a second year student? Everything is good. And you pick up Android is good. The only thing you want to think about is any technology that you want to learn, right? Any technology that you want to learn, you will be able to find one job in the whole fucking world. right? At the end of the day, you are one person. You just need one job. You don't need 10,000 jobs. If you're really good at it, you will get that one job. Okay. So whichever technology that you think of, so many people come and ask that data science is rising. Should I go data sciences? Android is on the decline, right? And I want to, I'm doing Android for the last 6 months, but I'm seeing Android jobs are declining. There were 10,000 last year. There are 7,000 this year. Bloody, do you need 5,000 jobs at the same time? You're just one person. Just focus on cracking that one job, right? Like you don't need 20,000 jobs to exist in parallel in order for you to get one, right? Just focus on building that one. So many, they start with Android, they see, oh, AI is rising. Let me switch to AI. Then they start spending 2 months on AI. Then, oh, data science is rising. Let me start doing data science. Oh, blockchain is something hot shit, right? Let's just do blockchain. You end up touching everything, knowing nothing, right? And then you have fancy keywords on your resume, and any interview, 5 minutes, they know the bullshit, right? Every engineering manager is 10 times smarter than you. So don't try to bullshit them. They'll know it. But to answer your question, yes, data science is also great. C++ is also great. A lot of highest performance optimized code that's written in industry is in C++. So people say C++ is dead. It's actually not. Some of the most competitive programmers in the world are still working on C++. D-Shaw's proprietary trading algorithm that does billions of trade every day everything is in C++. Quora's core services, I'm sure a lot of you use Quora. The core most services of Quora are written in C++. Core most services of Facebook are written in C++. So don't think C++ is gone because you don't see job opportunities for them. Just that they're very specialized job opportunities. You need to go into special places to figure out which companies are building technologies in these languages and then apply there, right? So you can literally spend 4 years in mastering the shit out of C++. And that's all you do. And you'll be the top 1% of C++ developers in the whole freaking world. And nobody can deny you a job opportunity in Facebook, Google, Microsoft, wherever, right? You don't need to think about data science. You don't need to think about any other fancy shit. Just master the fuck out of C++, right? And although obviously data structures and algorithms with it, but my point is that just focus on building good skill set in something that you are passionate about. Don't just follow what 10 people other are telling you to do. Okay, that's the most common thing that people end up making a mistake on. Alright, do you think that the trend of hiring just on the basis of DSA will change post-pandemic? So, Adarf, that's a good question. I think I touched on this briefly. A lot of companies, see the reason you want to understand from the other side of the equation. So, you are a student, on the other side there is a company. Why do companies hire people who are good in data structures and algorithms? Especially companies like Facebook, Google, Microsoft that are big, right? Myntra, whatever, right? Like these bigger companies, why do they hire people with data structures and algorithms only? For two primary reasons. A, it's a common subject that's covered in every college, irrespective of whether you're coming from a tier 1 college or a tier 6 college, whatever tier 6 even means, right? So irrespective of which college you're coming from, data structures algorithms is the same. It doesn't change, right? So every college will teach you the same things, right? Even though college teaches shitty things, but the point is that that's a standardization. And majority of these companies have very different departments and they have the time to train you. Okay, so that's why for them it's very easy to hire fresh talent or young talent using just one thing. It makes their job easy of hiring talent. If they had to hire 50 Python people, 50 web developers, 50 Android developers, right? Because they need all of them to work in their companies, right? It makes their job harder. So now they have a consistent pipeline and they evaluate everybody on the same pipeline. But what happens once you've crossed this pipeline, when you've gone inside the company, now you are a generic software developer. You can be thrown into a web team, you can be thrown into a React team, you could be thrown into a DI team, BI team, XYZ, who knows what. So the moment you become a generic developer, you can become anything else most of the time that's beyond your control. Okay, so the question was that will the pattern change? For these bigger companies, the pattern will not change, because once they resume hiring, they're not going to change the way they hire. They're still going to hire the same way because they are too big to make any changes. But when you look at new companies and product focused companies, right, uh, especially in the startup ecosystem, they do not have the time and energy to train you. Okay, they are willing to pay little bit more money, but they want people who are ready on day one, not 6 months from now after I train you. Okay, and this is the same problem with Infosys as well, right? Every mass recruiter, TCS, Infosys, why do they pay you cheap, right? Why can't TCS and Infosys pay you 7-8 lakhs? Well, they started paying now, but that's also for tier 2, tier 3 grade of engineers, right? Well, tier 2, tier 3 is probably the wrong way, but they have these grades that they've now introduced, right? Level 1, level 2, level 3, whatever you want to call them, right? So they are paying 8 lakhs as well for starting developers, because these guys are coming trained in and they don't need to spend time and effort on training you. So it's always better to train yourself in the kind of skill set that you want to be in. That way you can figure out what is the right path for you. A lot of people, what I've seen, at least my batchmates and friends who are now in Google, etc., they don't have control over the kind of technologies that they want to work in. Even they might be excited about AI, but for the first 2-3 years they get stuck doing something else. They can, once they are established, there are openings internally, etc., they can move around, but you do end up getting stuck. Okay, so that's kind of a trade-off. But to answer your question, the hiring process will not change because they are too big to change, and they're too big to make any kind of changes there. Okay, uh, can we start iOS development rather than Android? Absolutely. Who's stopping you? Right? I don't know. You can absolutely start iOS development. You can start Android development. You can start hybrid development if you want to learn React Native or something like that. Or even like, for example, like when we build games, right? We don't build for Android specifically. We build it in a game engine called Unity, and or you might be using another game engine called Unreal, right? You build once, oh sorry, you code it once and you build it to multiple platforms. So there's technology layers that are available that let you sort of build things in different ways. Okay. C++ is the best. If you know C++, you're more than 90% of the languages that exist, right? Yeah. How about Java? How about it? So whenever you're asking questions, just ask full-fledged questions. Okay. It's usually a little bit, inconvenient to understand first the question itself. Can you suggest some interesting projects in Java? Absolutely no. Okay. The reason why is because there are too many things that you can explore. If I suggest you one thing, you'll only be focused on that thing. Okay. So pick up something that you are excited about. Pick up a product that you use, right? So if you use an XYZ app, right, you can build that app in Android, right? And you can, use Java for it, right? Now you can probably even use Kotlin if you want to learn a new language. But point is that then you have to learn Android as well. So the simplest piece that you can start with is building a calculator, right? A calculator app in Java with a GUI, a GUI interface, etc. You can build that. That's the simplest one, right? But you can go into as many complex applications as possible. Start with maybe Windows applications. So I never give exact answers to things. I always give you a more framework of how to think about it. That's my philosophy of how I do things, right? So I'll point you in the right direction, but you will have to do the work to figure out what exactly it is, right? Otherwise, you'll never be able to learn how to do these things. Okay. Yeah, you can use Java, Android as well. Okay. Cool. So I think that's all the questions that I see. Cool, guys. Awesome. So overall, a great session. I think I'll quickly just mention that if anybody is interested, so we keep doing a bunch of these programs for C++. And so typically our programs are for working professionals, and the working professionals, they join in either when they're about to graduate or they have already graduated. They join in, we upskill them and we train them for 6 to 8 months. and get them specific jobs, and they don't have to pay us anything for this entire duration. Typically, the program is for 1.5 lakhs. So as you can imagine, it's a very expensive program. Uh, what we are trying to do now is that, or at least my sort of core thing is that, because these programs are immediately for people who are seeking job opportunities, it leaves out a lot of audience that is in the first to third year of college. So we're trying to bring in the same programs to college students as well, in smaller chunks. So a 6 months, 8 months program that focuses on the entire pipeline of getting you job ready starts from C++, covers data structures, covers algorithms, dives into, say, 2D game development, 3D game development, multiplayer game development. You have to do this in 6 months, and it's too intense for college students, right? Like, they don't have the time, because you have to give college exams and whatnot, right? So what we are trying to do is we are taking individual projects and launching them as smaller programs, right? Some of them are self-paced, other come with live sessions, etc. So we do a lot of this mentorship framework, where you get coached and mentored with industry experts. So I'm the mentor for a lot of the C++ programs and the game development programs. We have other mentors who are 8-10 years experience in the industry, who are mentoring students for web development programs as well, right? So typically, we are now launching these programs for college students as well. So of course, these are live interaction programs, right? So as a result, they are paid ones, but we in between keep launching programs that have scholarships as well. So 2 weeks back, we launched a scholarship program for C++. We have about 20-25 seats for that one that got filled out. So if any of you are interested, you can just go to this website. That's our website, outscal.com, and just hit the apply now button at the top. You can just fill the Google form, and somebody from my team will reach out to you. Meanwhile, I hope you guys learned something today. Hopefully, you'll start developing things, you'll start building things, and start learning from there, and figure out where you're passionate in, where you're excited about. Feel free to join the Discord community. The link is on the website as well, on the left. So here's the link to Discord. You can just directly click the link. It will open up the Discord app. If you're not on Discord, you can create an account and just join. It's absolutely free. So, yep. All right, awesome. So, great session, everyone. Let me just quickly check if there are any final questions. All right, cool, awesome. So let's wrap up. I think we went quite over time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Feel free to reach out to us. Anybody is interested for anything, you can directly send us an email as well, admissions@outscal.com. But quickest way would be directly to go to the website and just apply there for any of the programs that you might be interested in. Okay, cool, awesome guys. All right, take care. Good night.